Hi, Jeremiah. Welcome back to this show, Jeremiah. Welcome. Okay, just gonna give people 2 seconds to. There we go. I create consults from Toronto. There we go. Lovely to have you on here. Create consults. Okay, all right. We're going to give people, say, 5-ish minutes to come in. I think there's 20 people here, which means you can get started. We'll have a lot more people join, but 20 is enough to get a party started. If I had 20 people at a party, like, it has moved from get together to party, so let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome. So I was going to share my screen, and I am finding out, I found like 5 minutes before that Google Meet is not letting me do a lot of things today. So we will get creative. If you have been on this before, you just imagine, the screens I'll be sharing now. They mostly say what, why, and then they tell you what the artificial future is about. But I'll try and accompany that imagination with my voice this evening, and then I'll hand over to Uche. The party is really Uche's to take away. So welcome, thank you for joining. I see a few new names, and I see a lot of familiar names. We've been having these for the past 6 weeks now, and there are more than a few names that I am very familiar with here. So welcome, thanks for joining us. I'm Daniel, and we're here as part of the artificial future. I usually start these sessions by telling people, what is the artificial future and why is it even named the artificial future? And the response is usually, AI has entered the scene. The future has changed. We're really hopeful that it changes for the better. And in order to turn that hope into reality, we want to do that by being active participants of. There we see Toby, Jem. God bless you. We think in sync even when we're not in the same place. But yeah, so we're strong proponents that the future should change for the better, and that doing that requires active participation. And some of that active participation involves getting very familiar with the technology. What can it do? What can it not do? What are the limits? What are not the limits? It is why we designed what we call like an immersive initiative under 3 pillars specifically. So I've done the why. Thank you, Toby. It is why. So what is the artificial future? It's 3 initiatives in one initiative around 3 pillars. The first pillar is education. The second is involvement through active building, and the third is exposure. And those 3 pillars, I think, speak individually to some parts of the initiatives. The workshops, which we're here today for. Have been running for the past 6 weeks, and these workshops are skill building. They're expository workshops to show people, what is possible when when you get into AI properly as a young professional, as a non-young professional, as part of this whole active participation. What does it look when you understand? What does it look like when you understand these tools? What does it look like when you know how to build them? What does it look like when you use them to push your craft, or use them to, make yourself better, build personalized software for yourself? And I think the really interesting part about the workshops that have been happening over the past 6 weeks is how they build on top of each other. So, we started with with a session hosted by Shubomi. Shubomi is a senior PM at Microsoft, and she just spoke to us a little bit about how, AI, how she uses AI practically, and what that looks like working at a frontier company. And we've kind of slowly walked our way into how does that translate into personalized software. If you were to build that personalized software, how does that AI assisted development look like? If you move on from AI assisted development and now you're thinking about agents, what do agents do? How does that work? How does that look like? And we have found ourselves here, which I think is ridiculously timely, this session with Uche, which is talking about design, and how AI enhances that part. So whether or not you're a designer, I think everyone here probably has an innate need to make things look good, feel good, to make them work. Uche is one of the most AI pure designers that I know, and he'll be here to share a lot with us. So we're very happy to have him. Then once you move away from looking at all this quote unquote what's possible with AI, the next, I guess, pillar of the artificial future is that active participation through building. It is why we designed 2 weekends of hackathons, starting on Saturday actually. So if you haven't registered, the hackathon deadline is, I think, on Friday 11:59 p.m. Hackathon starts on Saturday. It's going to be a lot of fun. There are maybe 400. I'm calling that number off the top of my head. There are maybe 400 people signed up. There are a lot of groups to join. There are a lot of people excited about building really ambitious things. We're here for all of it. And that hackathon is really, a chance or an excuse to put everything that you've seen in the past 6 weeks into active work. Once you move on from the hackathon, people go on to build amazing things. We're like, boom, all well and done. And then the last part of this is exposure, which is the conference. The conference is on June the 13th, 2026 at the Civic Center, Lagos. It's going to be a full day event, full day immersive experience. It will be more than just us in this room. It will be a lot of the researchers, the practitioners, founders, builders, people pushing the edge of what it means to build a business around AI, with AI, what those products look like. Investors, policymakers, everyone's coming on June 13th, and we're so excited for that as well. If you haven't and you can, I think you really should be. If you're here and you're in Lagos, you should be there as well, because it is really the combination of all of this. And the idea is that exposure, that everyone in the room phenomenon is a forcing function to start actively participating in this ecosystem. We'll have a lot of panels, we'll have keynote speakers, and we'll have people sharing very practical experiences on what it means, to be part of an AI ecosystem in Nigeria, in Africa, in the world as well. So looking forward to having you guys there. So that is in summary, which I realized was not summary really. That is in summary what the artificial future is. And it is at this point that I will hand the party over to Uche. Uche, the floor is yours, please take us away.
Thanks, man. No, it was a good summary, don't worry. Let me share my screen real quick. Cool. Just checking if everyone can see my screen. Daniel, can you give a thumbs up or something? Cool. Thank you. Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Uche, like Daniel has said. And yeah, this session is really just going to be me talking about some tips that I've learned very recently about how to design in the age of AI, and basically how to build things that look good without having to bang your head on the wall a couple of times, especially because Daniel told me that there's a hackathon that's happening very soon. So the whole slide is, and the whole presentation is going to be mostly just geared around not to overwhelm people in terms of like some really complicated design things, not really, but more just like some quick tips that you can take in the short amount of time that's left to the hackathon to help you and just help everyone just to think about what tools and what AI tools that they can use to help them start from scratch to build their ideas, whatever those ideas may be, whether they're web ideas, whether they're app ideas. Hopefully some of the principles and hopefully some of the things that you see in this deck would help you think about building some of those ideas out. I wanted to give a little bit of an intro, but not too much on this. I'm, like I said, my name is Uche. I'm currently a designer at Monzo. I work in the business banking side of Monzo. Previously, before Monzo, I worked at Meta across Reality Labs, Workplace, Instagram, and a few other places as well across some African countries. Most notably to this would probably be Paga, Workstation. If anyone knows any of those companies, they have my hat from Nigeria. And outside of work, I spend my weekends getting heartbreak from Manchester United. So if anyone does that as well. We can bond over that. And I like to take random pictures. I like to make random pottery things. I just like to do random things, to be honest. And I feel like that shows in some of the things that I do with my work. So just a bit of a rundown of what we're going to do. We would start with thinking about how to get inspiration without starting from scratch. So some of the ways that I get inspiration when I'm like building some of my side projects, or some of the ways that I get inspiration when I'm doing like hackathon projects. And then we'll talk a bit more about how we can use AI tools to do some of the heavy lifting, and some other like hacky ways that you can get started when you think about design, or when you think about like building out your idea or shaping out an idea without having to like run around in circles. And then we'd spend probably most of our time attempting to do a live design demo. And if we're lucky, we'll basically move from shaping out an idea to designing out that idea to hopefully building out that idea on this session, if the demo gods are with us. And we'll do all of that together. And the hope is that it can be like a really interactive session, and you can drop comments, we can ask questions. I'll be sharing Figma files. I'll be sharing my terminal as I'm working through some of these. And basically just to inspire confidence into how you can make a design from an idea, and the design can actually feel like it looks really good. And then we can tweak and we can refine, because nothing is ever great one shot. So ideally we would want to refine. And then some more just like a roundoff of how you can get hackathon ready for the day. So if you can't tell, a lot of this is mostly geared about just getting people ready for that hackathon. And then at the end, I'll share some of the resources, I'll share some of the files, I'll share any other materials that anyone here wants me to share as well. Cool. So as I was thinking about how I wanted to frame this, and I was thinking about what I wanted people to leave from this, I really wanted to start with this quote from Steve, which is such a cliche quote to start with, a quote from Steve, but I'm starting anyways. But the quote basically is how I think about design, and how I think about design now, with Steve basically saying that design is not just what it looks, and it's not just how it feels. Design is also how it works. And in this age of AI and in everything that we're going to talk about, we're going to see how it's really easy to create something, but the bulk of the work really goes down to how you think about what you're creating and how the mind guides what you're creating. Everything that we've learned so far with AI and the efficiency of AI and the speed of AI just basically lets us know that you can create something super fast, but everything that AI creates right now works off of what has already existed. So it's essentially pulling from libraries and resources and inspiration, like design systems and material design system and so many of these things that already exist. So if you really, really want to stand out and you really, really want to have innovative stuff, it really comes from within. Your idea is what's innovative most of the time. AI just really helps you like get there and helps you like be the catalyst to help you build out that idea. And it's really, really weird that Steve had this quote before like this whole AI frenzy happened. So I think it just shows how front running people think when it comes to design. But yeah, essentially, AI really just helps you be a catalyst to your design. It's not necessarily the thing that helps you like magically come up with great design. Great design and great taste comes from within, but AI can help you build out your taste. And for me personally, I think one thing that I've learned over this last year, or as I've worked with this tool, it's helped me do all the crazy things that I thought in my head that were too crazy, that I just didn't have the skill set to do. I studied computer science when I was in uni, but I'm not an engineer right now. So ever so often I'll have a thought and I'll think, oh my gosh, like this is so crazy. How am I going to build this? But the whole idea is with AI now, you can really just like blurt out your thoughts, and you can take away all of the hard and all of the complicated aspect of building and stressing about how you're going to go and achieve that thing. And I'm hoping that that's the confidence that people would have at the end of this session, where you feel like you can blurt out your thoughts, and you just see them come to life, no matter how crazy that they are. Well, nothing is too crazy anyways. Cool. So like I said, I wanted to start with like how I think about starting when it comes to side projects, when it comes to stealing ideas. There's this thought that essentially like good designers borrow, great designers steal. And these are some of the places that I like to steal ideas from. And I've got like some of them open here, and some of them open in my tab. So essentially, like this like whole session is just going to be like a really like raw walkthrough of how I look at like inspiration sites, how I think about design. And one of the ones that I really, really love and I've been loving a lot recently is Mobbing. And I've got Mobbing open here. And Mobbing essentially like is this site that whoever like thought about Mobbing, if I see them, I'll probably hug them because they've saved my life so many times. A lot of the times you see things, you use things on your phone, and you think, oh my God, this is really cool. Like, I want to go in and I want to deep dive on this thing. I want to see how they've done this thing. And that's me like most of the times. So for example, if you're thinking on the hackathon day and you're thinking to build like an app like Airbnb, for example, and you know that Airbnb is a really, really great design, but you also want to have references of what Airbnb looks like. Mobbing is a really, really great place for you to just like search up Airbnb. And you can go in and you can see some of like the screens that you're looking for. If you're really inspired by their onboarding screens, you can filter through that and you can see those particular like onboarding screens or splash screens. Or let's say in this case, like I really want to look at like how the search experience work or how the booking experience work, and I'm loving this and I want to add this to my like mood board or how I think about design. I can come in here, I can copy that, and then I can start to create like a mood board of inspiration. So I also have this blank Figma page, but hopefully at the end of the session it wouldn't be too blank. So what I'd do in this sense is I'd come to a site like Mobbing, I'd scroll, I'd find something that I really like. Let's say I really like how this screen is. I can come in here, I can copy that, and I should be able to paste that in my Figma. Why it's not pasting, I don't know. But you can also come in here, let's try that. Okay, not pasting, it's just screenshot, because that still works. You can take a screenshot, and you can just, there we go, that'll paste in the background. Right. But ideally you can go through this for any other app that you want. Say like you're looking for a booking software, you can go through like booking.com, whatever software. You kind of get the idea of how you can take inspiration from this. Another one that I really like is Dribble. And Dribble is sort of like the opposite of Mobbing, with Mobbing being where you see more realistic like apps and products and sites that already exist. Dribble is a place where creatives and other designers post more like out of the box work, or work that isn't really public, or work that hasn't really launched, or just like as a portfolio of services where people can go and share their things. So again, I can come in here and I can say, oh, I want to build like a booking app. And you can find like really, really cool, tasteful like design explorations where people are exploring like other designs and other ways that they want to explore something that you're thinking about. And the idea here is that nothing is ever really created from scratch. So it's great for you to just be able to look at what other people have created and use that as a way to start to think about like whatever you're going to be building on the hackathon day. So if we're sticking with like this like booking theme, I can come here, I can say, oh, I really like how this thing is looking. I can take a screenshot of that. Why my Figma has not loaded properly, I have no idea, but I'm going to refresh that. This is what happens when you do things live. But let's keep going. Another one that I wanted to show is 21st Dev. So 21st Dev is more of like now getting you closer to how you can build realistic components. If you think of Dribble and Mobbing as more just like graphical elements and just like whimsical things, 21st Dev is really, really going into the interactions of things and then showing you the exact prompts, which I find really cool, because here you can come in and you can copy like exact prompts for when people have used to build some of these like tools or components or elements that they find really cool. Say, for example, you are looking at something like 21st Dev and you're trying to build like a search experience or a place where people go and type in what they're looking for. And you think, oh, I really love this like this AI prompt box or this box here, and you just don't want to have to start from scratch when you're thinking about this AI prompt box. Like, but you know that you want your design to have some kind of element when it comes to this like box. You want it to resemble something similar to this, right? So instead of like struggling, thinking about how am I going to describe this, or how am I going to start to like design this or build this out, you can really just come to a site like this, see a component that you like, and you can copy a prompt, or if you're familiar with code, you can copy the code directly. But what I like to do is I like to copy the prompt directly, and then some of the talks that you've had prior to this has probably like talked about some tools like Claude Code, Lovable, Vercel. With a tool like 21st Dev, if you see like a component that you really like, you can come and say, oh, I want to have this for Claude Code because I'm building something with Claude Code. And you can just like copy the prompt directly from that tool, and you can paste that into whatever building service or whatever like coding agent you're using. So these tools, and this one particularly is probably one of my fave because it gives me the exact like pixel by pixel, the exact thing that I'm looking for when it comes to this. So I wanted to start with showing some of these. Oh, there's a hand in the room. But yeah, cool. We can take some questions. I don't mind. Daniel, how do these go normally? Do you prefer we take questions at the end, or is it okay if we take questions as I'm going?
Show is yours, whatever keeps your flow going. I can see Isaac has his hands up. So if you want to take Isaac's question now, that's all well and good. If you want to wait until the end as well, Isaac will be first in the queue.
Yeah, no worries, Isaac. We can take the questions as we're going to make it more interactive.
Great. Isaac, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening. Sorry, you were talking about, I didn't get the website where you were saying, I didn't get the name when you were saying we can copy the code, the prompt. I didn't get that. I think I was a bit distracted. Can you please repeat it? I'm so sorry.
Oh, no worries. Also, I'll share the list of everything in a Google Doc that we should look at today. So if anyone wants to go back and look at it, we can look at it. But this site particularly is called 21st.dev. I can put this in the chat if that's easier. It's called 21st.dev. And that's the link for you to go in and play with it if you want to. Cool. Okay. Cool. So if at this point you've looked at a couple of inspiration, you've looked at a couple of design sites. Sorry, I'm going to do this because I want to see the chat. You've looked at a couple of design sites, you've looked at a couple of inspiration, you've taken some screenshots. If, unlike me, your Figma page is actually working, you would have pasted some Figma files in here, and your board would probably be fuller than mine looks like right now. And the idea, or the thing that I like to do with creating a mood board, is that you can think about like stealing like a designer as just like taking notes of what inspires you when you're looking at some of these designs. So what I like to do is like I like to take screenshots of things that I like, and I call this like the 3 screenshot method. So that I'm taking those 3 screenshots of existing apps or things that feel close to what you want to build on the day, and you can really just annotate them. And you can say, oh, I like this navigation, or I like this card layout, or I like this flow. And basically that's you building like a design brief, and building like a context brief that you can feed into whatever it is that you're using to think about design. So essentially you're no longer starting from scratch, and you're no longer looking at a blank canvas, which is just very, very anxiety inducing. And this is my way of like starting from scratch without actually starting from scratch. Yeah. And when I'm looking at like some of these like designs and I'm evaluating things that are out there that I really like, or when I'm stuck on a thought process, I like to use this like design framework to also think about like how I want to make certain decisions. So essentially when you're stuck on any screen, or you're stuck on like thinking about like to make design decisions quickly on a hackathon, I like to ask myself like these 3 questions, starting with like, what's the thing that you want like your user to do on like that particular screen? I have this like cool little app here that I've stolen from one of these different sites. And I like this app because like it's so minimal, but also it's so very clear what the designer or the creator is trying to get you to do here. They've got this one big button that just says plant memory. And then when you click on it, you just start to type. It's not very convoluted. Like it doesn't have so many different like elements in your face. The colors are primarily, you can really tell that this was really created like intentionally because it's clear what it's guiding you to do. So the first thing of like, what does the user do in this screen is super clear. And then how does the interface make that obvious? In this example here, the interface makes that obvious with like really, really strong like primary colors and clear like navigation in terms of like being able to navigate across different elements and being able to see what you need to do next, like click a done button or click a post button or click a search button, and having those elements like really, really clear and prominent in your app is a great way for you to like make quick decisions and unblock yourself and say, okay, this flow, the user is doing this, the interface is making it obvious by making these things more prominent or by making these things more clear. And what's happening next is that we want them to click a done button, or we want them to search up something, or we want them to add something to a calendar or add something to a cart. Like it's super, super clear what you want the user to do in that case. And then as you're thinking about like making some of these like decisions, you're kind of clear on what your user flow is, you're kind of clear on what like some of your inspirations are, then you start to think about like, okay, how do I make sure that I'm not going overboard with like what I'm trying to design, or how do I make sure that I'm not overwhelming myself with what I'm trying to build for my hackathon, so I don't have to design too many things, or so I don't have to have too much of a scope that it becomes overwhelming. And the way that I like to think about this myself as well is another part of the framework that helps me make sure that I'm designing like MVPs. And in some of the talks before, people probably could have mentioned some things where, how do you make sure that you're building an app or you're designing an app that is lovable and it's not like so small that you don't see the magic in it, but it's not too big that you're now like overly like spending so much time like worrying about little details or worrying about little tweaks that don't actually add so much magic or add too much feature scope to whatever it is that you're designing. And the way that I think about this is like, how do I like build a skateboard instead of like building half a car? And like this graphic on the side here is really, really powerful imagery for that. And if you think about like the graphic on the top, like it's kind of like, oh, like I have to design, like, oh my gosh, like I have to design the wheels and then the two wheels, and then I have to put a top on it and I have to put like this cap on it. What if you just started by designing like a tiny skateboard first, and you can see the magic in the skateboard? Or maybe like you want to design like a bike and you can see the magic in a bike. And how do you move from those different stages? And the best way to answer that with a hackathon like experience, I personally think that you wouldn't need more than 3 to 5 screens to make that work. And that's why I have that highlighted here. So you would see that come up in some of the prompts and some of the ways that we think about designing in the next slides. But I think if you're working on a hackathon, you have your idea, you have your inspiration, you mostly just need like 3 to 5 screens to like make your idea land and make your idea like stick. And that is what your minimum lovable product would be. So if you're worried about like having to design too many screens, or if you're worried about like having to like freaking out about having to figure out, oh, I have to design so much flows, don't be worried about that. Honestly, like you would mostly need like 3 or 5 in some rare cases to let the magic land in terms of what the user needs to do, but also what the user sees to make this feel like lovable and feel magical. And then if you want to take things a bit farther out, and this is where like some people stressed a bit, but if you want to take this a bit farther out, you can just like sketch and just put pen to paper. And the hope is that at this point, again, if you'd gone through some of the steps that we looked at before, you wouldn't be sketching from scratch. You would be sketching from the inspiration of things that we've already looked at. You already have a good idea of what you want your user to do. You already have a good idea of like what you want the flow to be and what the primary like use cases are and the 3 to 5 screens that you need to do. So you have like a clear idea of like what your happy path looks like. And if you're like me and you're not shy about like random ass like sketches or like just dirty designs, then you can put pen to paper and try to make an attempt of like sketching. And sketching is a really great way to like get your idea down, because there's really no expectations of things being pixel perfect, or really no expectations of things being like clean or the button really nice. It's just a great way to prototype your idea, and you can give that to like any coding agent, or you can share that to your teammates, or you can share that to your employer, or whatever the case may be. And the other person can really just see what you see in your brain, regards to what that app would look like, or regards to what that website would look like. And by doing that, you can kind of like spot any edge cases earlier. You can see what happens, or people can spark questions that can help you like redefine your sketch. And then once you get to a good place with your sketching, you can snap a photo of that and you can drop it into like a Stitch or a V0 or into a Figma file, and that could be your reference point. So sketching is one of the ways that I would like try to bring my ideas to life when I'm designing something that I want to feel good. But if you don't want to sketch and you don't want to have to like stress about having to do all of that, the next part of this slide, which is going to be our live demo, is where I think AI can really start to do some of the heavy lifting, and where I think AI can really start to help people with designing from scratch without having to design from scratch. And this is probably the fun part. Like a bulk of the talking has been done. So the idea here is that we're going to attempt to design something together. So I've put this like weird little GIF demo here that's talking about, well, how a hackathon could go. Say like you have an idea, and the idea is that, oh, you want to be able to find different like parks in Lagos, and you want those parks to be easier, so you can be like, okay, where can I go have a birthday party, or where can I go like hang out with my friends? And the concept here is that it's a really small idea, but it can be really magical if designed right. So imagine like three friends talking about like a hackathon idea. It's a pack finder where they can see where they want to have like a nice birthday picnic, or where they want to like maybe like just have food, or maybe just play games or whatever it is. But if it's really difficult to find a place, or you have to rely on Google Maps, or you have to rely on Instagram, what if there was just like a site where you can see where the parks that are near you are, and you can see like how much it costs, or you can see if they allow food, or you can see if there's anything that you have to bear in mind as you're coming to that particular park. So at this point, you just have an idea. You haven't built anything yet. The hackathon is in 3 days. You think you're cooked, but hey, you're not cooked. One of the ways that you can do this is on the day, you could literally just talk about your idea with your teammates and just record that conversation. One thing that I've been doing a lot with my friends is I've been enjoying this really cool tool called Granola. And if you don't know what Granola is a really cool like meeting notes recording tool where you can take notes of meetings, but then it also really works well for just like voice recordings. So on the day, you could be discussing about your idea with your teammates, which I think everyone is going to be doing. And you could really just record that discussion. And the point is, as you're recording that discussion, talking about your idea is probably one of the easiest ways to get it out of your brain into the world. And then you're brainstorming with your friends, you're jamming, people are like dropping like different thoughts and different ideas of how that could go. But if you don't have Granola, that's also okay. You can like just have a WhatsApp audio recording. You can open up voice memo on your phone. Literally, you can use any recording tool that can allow you to get like a transcript, or like allow you to get raw notes of your recording conversations with your teammates. And the idea with that is that that would then be your design brief, or that would then be your context brief that you can then use to sketch out ideas, or you can then use to design. So I've tried to simulate what a recording or a transcript recording would look like if it was a hackathon day, and the folks that you saw before, Tuni Amakanchi, they're sitting together, they're talking about what they're going to build. They've talked about how they want to build this website where it's like a park discovery app for Lagos. They've talked about who their users would be. So they're like, yeah, okay, like this is what we want it to be. This is how we want this app to feel. We want to add photos of the place. We want to see entry fee. We want to know if the food is allowed. And this is just basically like a transcript that I've generated and simulated that could reflect what a natural conversation, or as close to what a natural conversation could look like on the day if you're jamming with your teammates. So I'm going to copy this because I need it in my next slide. Cool. So at this point, you have your hackathon idea, you have your hackathon Jamboard. And here's where it starts to get really interesting. So what you can do is that you can take your transcript notes from the conversations that you've had with your teammates, and you can use that to shape some design ideas. Say, for example, you can paste that into Claude, or you can paste that into Gemini, or you can paste that into Google Stitch. And Google Stitch is Google's fairly new and I think free product, where essentially it's an AI tool that could help you like think about designs and help you get through that first layer of like what your app or your website could look like. And with Google Stitch, you can sort of like any other of the tools that you probably know, like Lovable and Club Code and anything in common, so on and so, you can just paste your idea of what you want to design, and you can then generate an idea. Or you can start from an existing like design if you have like a .md file, or if you have images. Say, for example, if my screenshot folder had actually pasted, I still don't know what happened here. But essentially with Google Stitch, you can take those screenshots that you would have taken from those websites that we looked at in the beginning, and you can paste those in here, and you can say, oh, I'm thinking about this type of design, and I want it to look like these type of websites or these type of apps that I like. But because those screenshots didn't come through, we can just go directly and we can paste our transcript. And I'll leave that there for now. But I've also created like a prompt template that could help you think about how you can nudge a tool like Google Stitch to generate designs. Essentially, you can generate a design and generate like a product brief for that design that helps you think about take your transcripts and say, here are notes from a hackathon brainstorm. Just take these notes and go make a brief and go make like a design screens for us to build out. So if you had those transcripts, you can take this first prompt that I have here. And basically this prompt is like a really quick prompt that guides like a tool like Stitch to create like a brief for the idea that you would have, or this idea that they would have talked about with your team. So I'm going to paste that in here. Basically, this just says, well, I have notes from a hackathon brainstorm session. We have limited time, we have limited people. Please write a short product requirements doc and give me the following things of like what the problem is, what the solution is, the user journey, et cetera, et cetera. And you don't necessarily need a PRD. You could just jump straight into generating your designs, but I like to work with PRDs because it helps me think about what are some limitations, and it helps me like just think about what like a good process would be. So we'll get to some cool visual stuff, but first we can just like hit the button on this. Cool. And what Stitch would do, or should be doing, why it's all white now, is that it should take your, thank God, it should take your prompts, and it should real after it should create a PRD for you that you can start to think about, and basically you can anchor your design on the day with that PRD. Cool. And basically you can see how we are no longer starting from scratch. We've gone from a blank template to inspiration, to like a PRD, to thinking about things that we actually like. All that just came from a natural conversation that you would be having with your teammates, and you would have recorded that. Cool. So now we have one artifact. And then the part that everybody's probably waiting for, what does designs now start to look like? So probably in the first few like months of when I started like playing around with AI, what I would then go and do is I would then say something like, design a mobile app for me for this idea, or design some screens for me for this idea. When you're thinking about shaping your ideas, or when you're thinking about shaping design and thinking about doing that with AI really fast, the prompt really, really makes or break how intentional or how creative or how like tasteful your designs come out. So if you give AI a generic prompt, AI will probably give you a generic output back. And that's just something that I've accepted. Until the models get a lot better, what you give is what you get sometimes. So a bad prompt in this case would look like saying, design a mobile app for my idea. You already have your PRD, but I think it's not enough to stop here. What you can do instead is you can take this a lot deeper and you can say, oh, I have a PRD for mobile websites. And by saying something like, oh, a mobile website, I'm being clear that I want this to be a mobile website. If I want it to be an app, I can say, oh, I have a PRD for a mobile app. Design all the screens that we've talked about in this PRD, and we can then paste the PRD. If you want to take this even better, I've also put out like a prompt template that we can use for a design time. So in that prompt template, I've added some more requirements like saying, oh, I want this to be a mobile browser, not a native app. I'm saying design every screen listed in the PRD screen session. And then I'm saying a couple of things like, I don't want complex navigation, don't add any new features, like don't go off and do your own thing. If you make any like assumptions, call it out, keep the color palette simple, and so on and so forth. So I can take this and I can go back to our beloved tool, and I can just paste this in here. So this is now my prompt. And then I can hit the button. And basically, this is me now telling Stitch that, hey, take this PRD and take all the things that we've talked about and use it to start to create like some really quick designs that we can use to work about our idea, and we can use to shape our idea. And Stitch, I find really cool because it really tries to give you the fundamentals of what good design could be, or what scalable good design could be, even beyond the hackathon. Because first, as you can see, it would try to generate like a design system for you. And that design system would have like what a good primary color could be, what a good secondary color could be, some fonts, some buttons, some like components like what a search or a home button or a nav bar or some of these other things. And then it can start to do some really cool magical stuff, like it can start to generate some screens. And they do that really well because they are taking inspiration from the idea that we have already like shaped in the PRD, the design system that it would have created already on the left, and it can start to generate some of these screens on the right. And basically, this is like one of like, I think the easiest ways that we can, and also this interaction is really cool. Like just watching this thing work, I find it really, really interesting. Where you can start to create some of these like designs. They want me to think that I'm doing this, but it's really cool to see this come to life like this. And obviously, it's not going to be perfect in the first shot, but it's a really, really great way to visualize your idea. And especially if you're working with limited time and you know that design probably is not like your strongest of tools. So you don't want to spend too much time like stressing about that on hackathon day. And you can see already that it's not perfect, but it's a good start, but it's genuinely not perfect. Like for example, there are some things like this logo here being misconstrued, the boxes here like overlapping. It would try its best to fix it as much as it can. It would try its best to give you as much detail as it can. But yeah, we'll just let this do its thing in the background. Ideally, at this time, you'd be chatting with your teammates or like grabbing a drink or something because you have AI doing your designs for you. And yeah, this is me also talking about what some of the more things that Google Stitch can do. So if you already have like a good idea of what you want your app or your website to look like, or you have some inspirations, you can also add those inspirations to Stitch. Let's say if we're sticking with like the Airbnb inspiration, and you really like how Airbnb works, you can go back to Stitch and you can say, where is that? You can say Airbnb.com. You can say, or actually you can say, make the design look and feel like Airbnb.com. Cool. And if the demo gods are happy, or if I've done that right, Stitch would then try to take this concept that we've come up with and try to give you like a more like, let's say like a more refined version of this that is taking inspiration from something that we like Airbnb.com. Because if we think back, we would have already seen Airbnb.com from tools like Mobbin. We like how the booking platform looks like. We like how they think about colors. We like how they think about like primary, secondary. We like how they think about placements. So we want to make our cool app here look a bit more like Airbnb.com. And while it's doing that, we can just kind of see what is done and what are some of the things that we would want to tweak. And it's then genuinely done some really interesting things here. Like for example, the ability to see the new park, the ability to compare different things. Maybe if you want to get a direction to where you're going, or seeing what like Lekki Conservation Center would look like. Obviously, like these images are AI generated images. In a real world, as you're building, you probably have to think about, where am I getting my images from? Where am I getting like my directions from? Is it connected to like Google Maps? Like how am I making sure that all of these things are actually real? Some of the stuff will probably come later on as you're thinking about building, but as you're thinking about just designing, I feel like this is a really good starting point to think about your designs. So you can see already now, Stitch is trying to redo what we've already just talked about, and it's trying to redo that in a similar style to Airbnb.com. It's going a little too similar to Airbnb.com for my liking, to be honest. I feel like it's just gonna lifted this, and I think this is a really good like explanation for how, what I was saying before about how no design is really created from scratch. Design sometimes is really just created from what already exists. So it's gone and it's like try to understand what already exists with Airbnb. It's giving us like some really like clear primary colors, some clear secondary colors, tweaked the fonts a bit, but kept the button style. And then it's done something that we didn't want it to do, that it's made this into a web app when we initially wanted it to be like a mobile app. So these are some things that AI limitations will still do unless you are giving it like more guiding prompts. So I could go back and I could say, oh, I actually wanted this to be like a mobile web app, and it could tweak that. Or in the initial prompt, I could have said, oh, make this to be like Airbnb.com, but making a mobile web app. So if we're looking again, it's try to do some interesting things, like showing you how much it would be to go to that park per person, showing you the food policy, things like capacity, vibe, where the location of the park would be. Also, if you wanted to compare two different parks, you can kind of see how it would look like to compare two different parks. So it's done quite a lot of like good work here, in my opinion. So you kind of already can take this and you can see that we've moved from a random idea from a WhatsApp group to a really strong PRD, to some design system, to like different variations of like what these ideas could be. And we've done that in like, what, like 10, 15 minutes. So I think that's like a really good like way to think about your hackathon designs as you're doing that. So we'll leave this for now, but we'll come back to it. So now, if you kind of tell, like, it's done a good job, but it's not done like a great job. And we probably wouldn't get to a great job here, because a great job requires like more iterations that we can do in like 30 minutes. But how do we start to like think about like making tweaking things and making things feel a lot more better. And the truth is that like the first output might just never be final, and that's okay, because honestly, like we've moved so far as a technological like society. We expect AI tools to be doing so much, but the first output is never final. And if we want to tweak things, like for example, we want to add a location screen, or if we want to like be able to put our own like location and then show me places that are near from my location, that could be something that we can add to it. Or say like we want to edit the detail screen because it has too much information, that could be something that we can add to it. But essentially, over your hackathon period, as you're tweaking these designs, you can try to just have one follow-up prompt at a time. And you can you would get to a lot more tasteful designs if you be more contextual with your prompts, as opposed to just saying something like, make it better, or make it nicer, or make it look good. So that's another way that you can make like iterations. And then another way that you can sort of like make iterations, and I really find that great with Google Stitch, is that you can export those designs. So those designs don't necessarily have to live and die in Google Stitch. So what we can do is we can say we like this a lot. We can highlight all of this. Just move this meeting thing, and we can export this. So if you are already familiar with some of the tools here, that's great, because then you can export to something like Lovable, or you can export to Bolt, or you can export to V0 with the Figma MCP, some of these things, or you can even use AI Studio directly, which is like Google's AI Studio, but like these ones are more than leaning into the build. But if you want to continue designing, you can export to everybody's favorite design tool, Figma, and you can click convert. While that's converting, I'll try and see what was happening with my Figma file and why things weren't posting. Okay. So I'll create a quick frame here for the wireframes. Let's make that pick up. Cool. So we have our wireframe file. Okay, cool. We're back. It's converted. So I can click copy. It's copied. And then I can come in here and I can paste. Oh, I made that too big. Let me just release the size here. Zooming in here. Okay, great. So the good thing about like this is that, as you can see, like we've taken those designs. Actually, I can try and make this a little bit darker so you can see. So we've taken the designs that we got from Stitch and the designs that we generated, as opposed to the blank Figma screen that we were looking at the start. So ideally at this point, we would have our mood board, we would have like our annotations, and now we have like a good design place to start from. And if you're like me and you want to go into these and you want to dig a little bit deeper, you'd probably be looking at these screens and you'd be thinking, oh, like maybe I want to tweak something somewhere here, or maybe I want to like change the copy of this button, or maybe I want to do something different, or maybe I want to, instead of making this primary button red, maybe I want to do something else with the colors. But the beauty of moving your designs from Stitch to Figma is that you can tweak things in a lot more easier, native way. So let's say like you want to do like tiny things like changing primary colors, for example, really easy. You can go into Figma. I'm just gonna move this, and you can start to play around with this, and you can see that things are actually like updating in real time, because now it's not just like a generated image anymore. Like these are actual like real components, real like Figma artifacts, real like elements that you can go in and you can play with. You can move things around if you want to. They're all like, Stitch has generated all of this in like really clear auto layout, so like it's doing a good job for what that could be. The only thing that it doesn't do really well is creating like design components. So if you wanted to like build like a design system and you wanted to like be able to reuse components, Stitch hasn't done that, and I'm not sure if it can do that yet. But for the purpose of a hackathon, you probably wouldn't want to go that deep into generating like design system components. And I think like something like this is good enough for you to actually start building, or good enough for you to start evaluating your idea in a way that makes it feel a lot more real. But if you still want to go like and play deeper, you can go in and play deeper, and you can do random things. Say, for example, if you want to change things, or if you want to tweak things, you can go in and you can change things, and you can tweak things. But Figma to Stitch is one of those really, really great ways where you can do that. Cool. Actually, at this point, how are we doing on time, Daniel, actually? Because I wanted to make sure.
We are now in, so I'd say we're okay on time, depending on people's appetite. I know this session was queued for what, 90 minutes, so we are now in, the show is serious.
Cool. So what we can then do is, now that we have our designs, say if on the day you're building with a tool like Claude, can people still see my screen, by the way, because I'm now in my, cool, okay. So I can then paste this design into Claude, and I can use my last prompt template here, which is now like a build from design template. So now we have our design, we have our PRG, we have everything that we need. So we want to then go and build this directly. So I can copy this template, this prompt template from my doc, and I can paste this into my Claude interface here. And I can then go back to Figma. Here, I can get my Figma file, copy that, go back to Claude, and then say something like, here is the Figma file. Just type that in, and I can paste that. And now Claude can start to do its magic. Just checking if people can actually see what's happening here, or are you still seeing like my Figma file?
We're seeing your Figma file. I am seeing your Figma.
Oh wait, it's supposed to be showing my terminal. Anyways, my sharing thing is supposed to be showing my terminal, but it will require me to switch. But we can continue while Claude is doing all of that in the background, because we're almost getting to the wrap. But just to kind of like reiterate, while Claude is building our designs in the background, some things that I wanted to remind us of as we were thinking about design for the hackathon, or as you're thinking about the hackathon, is just some of these notes that we've already kind of talked about already. So just remembering not to feel the anxiety of having to start from a blank screen. And there's so many like tiny ways where you can think about designs without actually having to start from a blank screen. So for example, screenshotting something that already exists, or just like taking a recording of something that you like, or taking an annotation of something that you like, or just recording yourself chatting with your friends, or with like whoever your hackathon teammates are. And before opening any tool, like ask yourself, like, what does the user do here? Like, what are we trying to get them to do? In the example that we went through, we're trying to get them to find a park. We're trying to get them to compare a park. We're trying to get them to see information about like some parks that they would be interested in. And also remembering that you don't need to design the whole thing. You can always just like get one screen right first, and then you can move between something like Stitch to Figma. You can sketch it out to show your teammates what you mean, or show someone else what the idea that you're trying to convey. And some last few things, just the juice is really in the iteration. So like you saw, like we went from our first like idea, and then we tweaked it to make it better based on like a website that we like for example, Airbnb.com or something like that. And we tried to get to that good enough level at a hackathon, because I think it's a great way to move the first hurdle that could then let you to go in and explore, like, or then let you to go and like obsess about whatever details that come with like actually building code or actually getting something to life. And lastly, like, yeah, pick a font and stick to it, honestly, because as you saw, like from some of the coding interfaces that we looked at, AI will sometimes go and do its own thing, or it will sometimes go and like generate its own thing. So if you have like already like a design system that you want to work with, like I think it's really great to obsess about that design system. I'm going to switch my screen because I want to show you what's happening on the back. Let me stop sharing and I'll start sharing again. Cool. So what I've tried to do, I'll try and minimize this. I'll keep my slide deck open. Close this as well. So what I've tried to do is I've taken the if you can see this. So I've taken the last prompt templates that we just looked at, and I've pasted it into my Claude interface here. And I basically said, oh, I want to build like a site. Here's my PLD. Here's my Figma link. And then I've told it, we'll build this as a single page React app. And I've just pasted that prompt in there. And I've said stuff like mobile viewports. I've said stuff like master design directly. And then I've basically just copied and pasted the Figma link that we just worked on today. And now Claude can then take that Figma link using an MCP and try to match and build the designs that we've just created using Stitch. And basically the idea that I'm trying to convey here is that you can go from, like I said, a concept that you're just chatting about with your friends in a transcript. You can then use that transcript to generate a PRD. You can then use that PRD to generate some cool designs. And then you can then use those cool designs as your starting point to build out something that feels real and feels good and actually works. This is probably going to take a few minutes to build out, but while we're doing that, I can continue wrapping up and then talk about some of the more resources that we shared. So just to highlight again, like for the folks that would want it for when the hackathon time comes around, some of the resources that we've looked at today, we've looked at Granola for recording, we've looked at Google Stitch. This is running on Claude AI. We've looked at Gemini, and because we used Gemini as part of like Google Stitch. And then some of the other stuff that I shared for inspiration are Mobbin, Dribble.com, 21st Dev. And then I also have the demo prompts here as well, where I have like all of this like resources that we've looked at today, like the transcripts, the actual like links to the resources if anyone wants to look at it, or the prompt templates if anyone wants to use that for the actual day. While Claude is doing this thing, I'll pause just to check the sentiment of the room again and see, Daniel, if there are any questions or if there are any like comments in the chat that anyone would like us to discuss, or if there's anything you want us to go back to.
I mean, me, I had a question. I assumed you ignored me because you didn't like me, but I was asking what is design system. I say that because I'm also a designer. I kind of hear it now and again, and you've mentioned it quite a few times in this conversation. So like just a quick, I guess, note on like what does that even mean, design system?
Cool, yeah. So basically in its simplest forms, like design systems are a bunch of like rules that you create that help build the foundational blocks for your interface. So for example, if you're, actually let's go back to Stitch and I can show that better. So for example, you're building a site, right? And you want to have some colors, you want to have some buttons, you want to have like a search component, you want to have icons, you want to have like fonts and primary and secondary colors, right? A design system is basically a combination of all of that. So by creating this component, or by creating this set of rules, and you're saying, oh, I want my primary color to always be this color, or I want my secondary color to always be this color. If there are highlights, I want it to look like this green. This is how I want my font to look and feel, or this is the font that I want to use. This is how I want my button to be, or if I want it to be rounder, or if I want it to be like more box shape. And these rules are the rules that then you use as foundational blocks to basically design whatever you want to design. So everything that you see on this page is built on top of these like small block of rules. And that's why you have consistency across all of the different pages, even though that they are different pages, because the design system with that rules basically help you get to that level of consistency across all of your different pages. And you can keep going, and you can keep like adding new ideas, and you can feel confident that you're not going to have something that looks different from the other family of screens that you've created, because you have a system that you're referring that back to. Was that a good answer? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yes, very, very much so. Thank you. Amazing. Thanks for taking care of that. There are also two people raising their hands for questions. So I think Ochai Isaac can go first, and after Isaac, Obed can go as well. Isaac? I'm not hearing from Isaac. So Zachariah Hassan.
Oh wait, Isaac, you're on mute if you're speaking.
Okay.
Hello, please, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you for the session. It's been quite informative and very practical. So, I ran into an issue yesterday while using Stitch, and it was asking me to enable JavaScript notation. So I don't know if you have run into that issue, because I checked all the settings and I couldn't find where to enable that feature from.
What were you trying to do with Stitch?
Okay, I had a PRD on Notion, and I imported that PRD, put it on Stitch, and gave it a prompt with design guidelines and everything to design a mobile app. But after designing some screens, it stopped and asked me to enable JavaScript. I've forgotten the last part of the sentence, but it asked me to enable something that's related to JavaScript before it proceeds to design the remaining screens. And I checked the settings, I checked everywhere. I couldn't find that setting. So I wanted to ask if you have run into that issue before.
Yeah, yes, that would have been frustrating. I personally have not run into that issue. Like, my flow has almost always gone as smoothly as it has gone today. Maybe I've just been lucky, but I haven't run into that issue before. I'm not sure if that's because of the way that you're importing the like PRD from Notion. Maybe if you use like just like a text dump, like if you can copy, like if you're trying to connect like a Notion link or connect it from Notion, maybe you can try again in like a fresh file, like refresh, do a hard restart, and just open a new file, and just copy the actual text of the PRD from Notion instead of like trying to connect it through like Notion to Stitch. Similar to how we've done it today with just like a random text. Maybe that might work. Like, I personally haven't run into any of those issues before. But another thing that I can do is I can share like a community on Stitch where people ask like these like random questions. I can share that after the session. So maybe someone from there, or like an ops team or something, can be able to help. Because me personally, I haven't run into that type of issue before.
All right, thank you very much. I'll be really grateful.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Isaac. Zachariah Hassan can go next, and then Obed and Arikwa. Looks like.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I
Yes,
can.
Hassan.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the session. Practical, informative, and also something anybody can be able to apply. What I want to ask is, all of these websites, application tools, which one is free and which one is a paid subscription to? Are they all free or you have to subscribe before you use some of them? Because I've seen you using like Cloud Code. Thank you.
Right. So look at that. That has just popped open randomly while I was talking, but we'll come back to that later. So the good news is that most of them are free. The inspiration sites that I'm actually using are all free. So if you're thinking about like where to get inspiration for design, like Dribble free, 21st of Dev free, Stitch as well is free. Mobbing is also free, but to actually get more results, it's then a paid feature. So the free version, I think you only have like a limited number of searches or a limited number of results that you can use. But then when it comes to building, sadly, to really get the juice of Cloud Code, it's not free. But like, don't be disappointed, because there are so many other tools that you can use that are actually free. Gemini is also an interesting one. V0 gives you like a little bit of like a trial. Lovable also gives you a bit of a trial. So there are quite a couple of tools that you can use that gives you a bit of a trial. And what I can do is I can add, where is it? I can add to this resources list here after this session, and I'm sure Daniel shares after what are some of the build tools that you can use that are free. And also I can add like the ones that are paid as well, if some people want to try out some of those other ones. Some of them have some free trials that you can use before they actually start to charge you. And some of them are free, but like you have things like token limitations or limitations in terms of like sharing the site. So I'll go in here and I'll clearly call out which ones are completely free versus which ones has free trial and which ones have like token limitations, so that when you look at this resources tab and you want to like play around with it, it will be a lot more clear for you to know which ones you want to play around with. Cool. One more question.
Good evening, teacher. Thank you very much for this session. I came in late, but as soon as I joined in, I was able to grasp everything you were saying. So my question goes this way. I would like to know, as someone that's new to this whole design thing, when we are going for hackathons, what is our expectation? Is it just to solve the problem? Is there a business side to things that we are to, communicate or consider, for the users? Okay, how are we making, for example, they say, if the product is not free, the user is the product, that kind of thing. So how do we do it in a way that we are able to communicate the usefulness of our product, to be a most lovable product, as you said, not just a most valuable product alone. So that's one of the things I want to ask. Then do we show like, because my own background is not really hackathon, it's more like case studies I used to do. And there was a case study I did, it was hypothetical for a blockchain company. They asked us to like design a new framework for adoption, right? For a DEX transformation from P2P to DEX. And so we created a prototype and mock-up for something that looks like a P2P site. Then we now created a new design. Is there something like that that we should, consider? Should we do that? Or is it overkill? That's what I want to ask. Thank you very much.
Cool, man. No, your questions are like really top. So thanks for all that. Really, really good questions there, man. The first thing I'd say is like, I personally don't think anything is overkill in a hackathon. But that's just me personally, because it all comes down to one, how much time you have, and yeah, like how much time you have for the hackathon and how fast, I guess, you're moving. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to spend so much time doing the like extra cherry on top things that you don't do the main thing that you actually came to do, which is, like you said, like solving the problem, building something fun. And I think like the juice about the hackathon is actually building something fun and designing something fun, and everything when it comes to how you're delivering that idea is now like a cherry on top that you can add on later, or like when it comes to like a deck, or when it comes to like a case study, you can always create one after, or like you can always make your presentation really stand out after. But sometimes some hackathons are also about like, oh, like let's be really scrappy, let's just build something sharp, like let's just like try to design something out there really quickly. So again, like I would defer that one to the organizers of the hackathon and what the like what are some of like the guiding like tips that they're sharing in terms of like what are they expecting people to come out with in terms of like an output at the end of the day. But you also asked another question which was really, really cool, and something that we didn't really focus on too tough on this present, was more about like the business side of it. And I didn't focus on that because I assumed maybe one of the talks might have covered that, but also because we really wanted to talk about design. But like you said, like you can't have like strong design concepts without having strong like user-minded thinking in terms of like, okay, how am I being user-led in terms of like this design? Like I'm not just designing just for designing's sake. And that is why we created the PRD first. And I'm so glad that you asked that, because the PRD was my way of trying to provide some sort of like thought process into creating something that thinks about the user without just like jumping straight into design. And we didn't really look too tough at the PRDs, but like the PRD that we created and the prompt template, if you use that prompt template, what the prompt template did for us was that it called out what the user problem was. And it called out really clearly that this is the user problem that why did this open? This is the user problem that we're trying to solve. This is the solution that we're trying to solve for that user problem and why we think that solution is going to work. We also called out like some user journeys, like some assumptions, and like what we think this thing is going to do, like a cut list and requirements. And this was like my way of trying to make sure that whatever designs that we were creating was not just coming from a statement alone or coming from an idea alone, but also guiding the AI to think about like, how is this problem shaping and what does this problem actually want us to achieve, right? And how are we thinking about the solution of that problem? There's probably like a whole other session that I would have loved to go into about like how I think about like business and how I think about like solving a problem for the business, but also solving that problem for the user, and how I think about like being data informed and positioning when it comes to user problem. But I tried to focus just mostly on like design and design with taste. I think your instincts are really, really clear there that you can't have something great without like being user-led, without being like thinking about the user, because then it's just like creative expression if you're not grounding yourself in some like core concept like how does this work for the user and how is this really helpful for the user. But a PRD is one way where you can start to document that thinking, and you can come in here and you can add some of that thinking as well, that you can say, okay, like, yes, we are creating like a park finder, but these are some of the lovable things that we want to keep in mind as we're designing something for the user. I don't know if that answers both of your questions, or if you want me to like.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I think we have time for one more question because we have 7 more minutes. But I'm not sure if there's another hand yet, but whilst someone is like getting morale for their question, Claude has done the magical bit of building out our design exactly as it was in the Figma file, but it's done it for mobile because we wanted it to be a mobile design first. And now you can kind of click into this and you can see if we go back to, oh, why am I opening this here? I've got it here as well. Cool. So you can see how this looks on mobile, and you can click into this and you can see exactly how like this experience kind of would work. You can kind of get like some some inspiration into what this thing is going to feel technically. And yeah, I'm really happy that this has worked, because then you can kind of see how we've gone from building out this design to having our like concepts here in Stitch. And you would notice that it doesn't look exactly how it looks on design, because remember we changed it a bit in Figma. We came to Figma, we tweaked the primary color, we tweaked a couple things, we pasted it into Claude, and it's done its magic, and it's built that. We can even take this a little further and say, oh, like push this to ourselves. Like,
You're talking about it. Yeah, when it's time, poo.
oh wait, I think someone's on this.
Isaac, do you have a question?
No, I don't. Sorry.
Yes, I do.
Cool.
Okay. I just wanted to ask, how do you what Figma plugins are available that can help replicate your design to a very high level of accuracy? Because the plugins I've tried out, they tend to change the design, or they can't exactly replicate it properly. That is, when changing it to code, they tend to make a lot of errors with gradients and some of these things. So I don't know if you have any tool you personally use or have tried out that is very good when it comes to the level of accuracy of turning Figma designs to code.
Oh, that's a really good question. Can I ask, like, which tool are you using to convert the Figma designs to code? Because sometimes the tool also plays a part in that.
I've tried out, so I searched on the plugins store. I tried out like 4, but the one I can remember clearly is builder.so.
Cool. I'm using the Figma MCP that comes directly from Figma, because like it's coming directly from Figma, so they've done a lot of work internally to make sure that they're able to read that. And I'm using that MCP directly hooked up with my Claude account. So basically, like, the MCP is just a way it's like a connector for to allow one tool speak to another tool and see the context behind that tool, and then just share information between those two tools. So I've connected my Figma MCP directly to Claude, and I think for me that's one of the best ways that I found to be able to use Figma designs and get it to as close as I want to. But even at that point, like it doesn't always come out as close as I personally want to. And I feel like your question is a really great like segue into the last thing that I wanted to leave you guys with, which is this tool here called skills.sh. And skills.sh is one of the places where you can then go in and you can see even more plugins if you wanted to eliminate some of those things that are aching you, like the gradients, like you talked about. Like if you look at the design and you feel like the taste that you have is just not well replicated in the design that you're seeing, Skills has a bunch of skills that you can use to make your designs better. And there are a couple ones that I really like here, and these could, I guess you can think of these as plugins as well, or you just think of them as skills, basically. One of them being impeccable, another one being make interfaces better. So in the situation that you're talking about, what I would come in and what I would do is actually just make interfaces better. And make interfaces better is like a plugin or a skill, I guess, that we can use to evaluate the design that your AI has hooked or spat out, and you can say, okay, like there's something off here, but like it's not as close to what I want it to be, or it's not as close to the designs that I want it to be. So if you want to push it even further, I'd come in, and I'm hoping that you can see this. I'd say something like make interfaces better, improve the UI of this. And yeah, what that would do, it'll probably take a few more minutes, but like what that would do is that it would take the build that we have created, which is this. And also I can share this link as well if anyone wants to click around and play around with the thing that we have just created. Sorry, this session is getting very raw now. I'll post this in here if anyone wants to click around and play around with it. But essentially, we've all created this website together just now. And what Make Interfaces Better can do is it can then go in and it can evaluate like what we have created, and it can tell you, oh, like this like component could be tweaked better, or like this like UI could be tweaked better. And it can just basically improve that based on some skills that the creator had already set, or based on some rules, design rules that the creator has already set. So one of those skills like is a really good way to push your designs further if you have the intention to push your design further beyond what the first output of an AI CLI would be. I don't know if that answers your question, or if you want me to go in deeper on any of them.
Thank you. Yes, it does. Well, I think my last question is just how do I access the MCP?
Ooh, that's a very good question. What I can do is I can add as well in the resources. I'm just adding this here so I can remember a link on how to set up Figma MCP. Cool. I think it might take a little bit longer for me to explain. I know we have like literally like we're already on time, but what I'd like to do for you is I'd like to add like some steps and some links that just walk through how to set up a Figma MCP, because to do this right, you have to go to you have to go to your Figma settings. You have to create like a token. You have to connect that with your coding tool. It takes a few steps that I can explain on the call, but I will add it into this resources segment because I think it would be really helpful for you or anybody else who is interested on the day of the hackathon. I don't know if that's helpful. What do you think?
Thank you. Thank you. It's very helpful.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, we've come to the end of the session. I've pushed it to the exact last minute, but I hope that at the end of this session, we've kind of seen how we can go from like a really like rough idea or really raw idea that we had. We chatted about it. We created a brief. We created some designs about it. We tweaked those designs, moved them into Figma, exported those designs back into coding tools, and we built this beautiful version 1 of a park finding site. And I pasted the link in chat if anyone wants to play around with it, because I'm hosting this on Vercel, which is great. And yeah, I hope that has kind of like given people like a bit of confidence in as you're going into your hackathon the next 3 days, that you can really just take your idea and you can build it. I thought I was going to have a bit more time to show you what Make Interfaces Better would do, but it's taking a few more minutes. So if someone wants to ask me one last question so we can buy time, that'd be great. But if not, I'll pass it over to Daniel if you want to close out.
Questions going in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Someone's asking for your IG. You have come to an influencer, Uche. But yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Uche, for that session. I'm here for all of it. Sorry, my camera would be on to commiserate, but I'm seeing things in Lagos. So but thank you so much for this session. I appreciate it. My favorite part is, was Uche saying, we all built this together, and I felt like one of those people on the group chat. It's like, I mean, what did you build it? I didn't build anything, but thanks for the accolades. I'll take it. But yeah, no, amazing. See the amount of claps and reactions, I think speaks to the value that is here. So thank you very much. Like Uche said previously to everyone listening, we will be sharing both the recording and the slides for this session like ASAP. We know that there's a lot in there that will be especially useful for the hackathon that starts on today. So can't wait for you guys to have the hearts are just community. Well done. We can't wait for all of you to have it in your hands. Amazing. Thank you so much. So we share with everyone right after this session. And like I said at the start of this, it's really just encouraging, really just amazing to see how each session builds on top of each other. The last 10 minutes of this session has been talking about MCPs and how that works with design. I remember maybe the second session we had was about MCPs in particular, and then that quickly tied into Jerry's session and Nkeshi's session right after. Amazing to see how all of these tie together. For anyone here, I'll hope that if you're looking for practical ways to put all of these together, that you sign up to the hackathon. I think the deadline is on Friday, so we're still very much taking people in. Someone's asking, how do you apply the skills? I have a very good answer to that. You can apply it in a hackathon, find a couple of people, build something together and apply the skills. The real learning comes from building with it, from doing things with it. So amazing to see that. I recognize we're at time. We usually have this like very quick, thing before we go off, where people connect, where people share where can people find you online, which looks like people want to find you online. And same goes to everyone on the call as well. If you want people to find you online, pop a link in the chat. We'll just give everyone 2 minutes to do that while we start to close out, I think.
Yeah. You can find me online on LinkedIn and on Twitter. And I'll pop my links in the chat. Let me just get it. Also, Twitter recently deleted my account, so I just created a new one. So if you go to my Twitter and it looks like a bot account, I promise you it's not a bot account. I'm actually a real person. But those are the places where you can find me. You can also find me on Instagram, but that's just where I post about Manchester United. So unless that's what you want to see.
Thank you, Uche. Very, 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 very much appreciated. I can't wait to see everyone put some or all of these to very good use at the hackathon. So if you haven't yet signed up, I was going to try and put the link in the chat. Just give me a sec. I have a strong feeling everyone here is already signed up to that, but just in case you're not, you get another few seconds to just do that. There we go. There we go. So anyone that wants to can sign up, and I think we're going to wrap it up here, unless anyone has any reason to pull us back. Right? I think I've had an amazing 90 minutes. I don't know if anyone else. Yeah, I've had an amazing 90 minutes, and I'm very happy to meet you. In which case, I will say, everyone, have a lovely rest of your evening. There is one more workshop in this series, which is happening tomorrow. If you're not signed up to that as well, actually, very good, because there's one more workshop in this series. It is less hackathon focused and just more about for the AI geeks in the house. Yeah, if you're actually someone that is particularly interested in AI, I think tomorrow's session will be amazing. These guys coming to talk from data, and they're talking about evaluation, AI evaluation from African speech models. So if you've ever sat and wondered, how do they teach ChatGPT how to get better at any given language? That session will just cover the whole idea of, quote unquote, teaching AI to get better at something. Claude, ChatGPT, all of the tools that we use now, they're all good at code generation because we consistently taught them how to get better. Same thing happens now that we're wanting to engage with an Africa confidence, which is how do we teach it to get better at languages and stuff like that. So that's the session that you can sign up for tomorrow, that you should sign up for tomorrow. This is where we will call it a night. Have a good rest of your evening, everyone. And